Can you all hear me? I think so. Madam Deputy Prime Minister, distinguished guests, friends, and ladies and gentlemen of the Free Press. And Citizen Anwar. But more importantly, Free Citizen Anwar. And being a free citizen is more important than any honorific that you might have. A Dato, a Tansri means nothing unless you're free. Because being free means that you have voted in fair and open elections. Being free means that you are protected by impartial and independent judiciary that maintains the rule of law. Being free means that you are governed by an elected parliament and a professional and impartial civil service that are dedicated to the benefit of the people. Being a free citizen also means that you are protected from laws which authoritarian governments use as a weapon against the people. So, welcome, I think. I made the comment that it's quite thrilling to see faces other than in a courtroom, which is basically what it's been for the last 14 years. And I see many familiar faces and old friends here. So, importantly though, it's great to have Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim with us today, a free and pardoned man, an unconditionally pardoned man, and we should all express our appreciation to seeing here today. Now, the principles I mentioned are really what is in the book. It records Anwar's long struggle, 20 years struggle for justice. It started in 1998, and this is the 20th anniversary of that. Through the first trial, through the second trial, the acquittal at the High Court, and then the appeals in the Court of Appeal and the Federal Court, and finally, after another 3 years in prison, freedom at last. And it's an amazing story, but incredibly true. And it's not just about Anwar Ibrahim, because the last 20 years really records the decline of Malaysia's democracy over the last 20 years. And hopefully its resurrection in General Election 14. It also documents the attempts by politicians to corrupt Malaysia's institutions and undermine its political and moral values. But that attempt has failed. And can I say this, that those of you who are not on the main table would not have seen that there are a lot of uncut diamonds strewn over the table. And I was asked whether these are Rosmar's pink diamonds. Apparently not. Can I say this, that last night I was in Kinokuniya in the KLCC, and there I saw, to my surprise, was this book, sandwiched between another book about Dr. Mahathir, and also Harry Potter. So success at last. Between Mahathir and Harry Potter, success at last. The book itself is, look, of course there's a legal analysis, but it's written by a lawyer, but not for lawyers. It's written for all of you, not just Malaysians, but people around the world, to really understand what has happened in the last 20 years in Malaysia, to understand it and to guard against a repetition of the corruption and the authoritarian rule that this country was subject to. And it's important that you understand how the legal system, the justice system, was used to manipulate the court procedure and how the evidence was misstated and ignored by the prosecution and the judiciary in order to convict Anwar Ibrahim. Now, I can tell you, having observed Sodomy 2, having observed both appeals, Anwar Ibrahim is innocent of the charge of which he was convicted. That's not an opinion based on emotion or intuition. That's based on the evidence that the judiciary ignored. The judiciary ignored it because it wasn't part of the political agenda. And in the book, which I hope you read, you will see that the pivotal point of prosecution was the decision by the Court of Appeal in 2014, and then the subsequent conviction of Karpal Singh of sedition that really was the turning point. Because it was then the government had decided, that's when Anwar was going to stand for the seat of Kajang. Do you recall that? Well, in the space of a week, the judiciary destroyed not only Karpal Singh, but also Anwar Ibrahim in the most disgraceful way. And my declaration of Anwar's innocence is, as I say, based on not just evidence, but scientific fact. What the judges couldn't get over was that the DNA evidence was conclusive that Anwar's DNA had not come from the complainant Mohammad Saiful. It was fabricated. That's what the foreign experts said. Dr. Brian MacDonald, the Australian expert on DNA, said, this may be his DNA, but this does not come from the complainant. It is too pristine. So that's why I'm able, and foreign experts are able to say, that Anwar Ibrahim is innocent of the charge that was brought against him. And the second book was called The Final Play because that's what was politically intended, was to destroy Anwar and Karpal Singh, obviously because of the scare that the government got in 2014. They knew the writing was on the wall, and so the only way, of course, to remove your opponents is to jail them or disqualify them from sitting in Parliament. And this book explores how really the final play, that's how the game was fixed. This book, on top of that, explores what's happened in the last 3 years, and it talks about the final twist. And this is the final twist. And Malaysians achieved or reclaimed their democracy, not through violence, but through the ballot box. And Malaysians have finally spoken and overcome every crooked attempt to contrive an electoral result. And that's what makes this victory so incredible. Clearly, there are lessons for the new government. The new government will stumble here and there because they're inexperienced. Apart from Dr. Mahathir and Anwar, I think in Hishamudin, I think there's no one who has experience in terms of government. So that will take some time. But the new government must remember how it won and why it won. And the people undoubtedly will give you time to adjust and take account of your inexperience, but they will not tolerate you becoming another barrister. Will not stand for that. They now know that their power is in the ballot box, and they will take it away from you as quickly as they gave it to you. And should this government revert to its old authoritarian and corrupt ways, Malaysian people will not stand for that, because it's Malaysia alone that has turned away from authoritarianism. Look at the other countries in the region: Cambodia, Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, all marching towards or to the sound of the authoritarian drum. But this country turned in the opposite direction, towards democracy. But it's a fragile flower, and it's something that needs nurturing, and you mustn't starve it of its key nutrients. Clearly, of course, there are many parties involved in the new government, but I suppose you feel confident that under the leadership of the Deputy Prime Minister, Citizen Anwar and Tun Mahathir, this country will flourish once again. But it's Anwar really, through his courage, determination, an unswerving belief in justice, and that the people would ultimately see him through, who has emerged from being a political prisoner to a Prime Minister in waiting. And it wouldn't have happened without his vision and his sacrifices. But he hasn't done that alone, of course. For there are many in this room, and particularly his family. Family have suffered over the last 20 years, but have never wavered in their love and support of his ambitions and his dreams for this country, and they have been active participants in that process. So you should all feel lucky that you really got the whole family in terms of their commitment to this country. And it wouldn't have happened unless the people shared and wanted to share his vision for change. So this is the story. Obviously, I'm going to commend the book to you. I think you should read it. The Deputy Prime Minister was just telling me how much she enjoyed reading the book in detail, and yes, there you go. And you are going to be given some books free this evening. You seem a bit underwhelmed over. Before I conclude my remarks, there are obviously many people I wish to thank. I want to thank Dato David Yo, and the late Michael Bong, without whom this probably wouldn't have happened, because they were keen and determined that this story should be told. And also Nurul Anwar, who said to me, look, you're doing these reports, they really should be going into a book. Everyone should know what has happened in this country. And I suppose if you think about it, unless it was recorded, it just would have faded in the mists of time. And Mr. A.K. Kamara, who's really put this together, has ensured that a number of copies are going to each university within this country, so that students in the future will read and know what actually happened. And can I say this, that to Mr. Kamari has really been the driving force of this event this afternoon. And I think we should express our appreciation to him as well. Importantly, Marshall Cavendish, they're the publishers of this book, and they were the publishers of my first two books. They have given enormous support, because remember, when you're in opposition, of course, no one really wants to know you. You can't really do much for them. But when you're in government, of course, everybody wants to know you. So publishing a book about Anwar Ibrahim's trials and tribulations really wasn't guaranteed to be a bestseller, and I suppose it wasn't, because there were lots of efforts made not to sell it. Booksellers would not take the book into stock because they were worried that there would be repercussions from the government. So in the second book, Marshall Cavendish actually sent the books undercover and released them in the stores before the government could grab them. So that sort of commitment and that sort of support is very much appreciated, because without publishers, of course, stories are never told. And may I give a special vote or expression of thanks to Lee Mei Lin, who's the associate editor. They're the publishers there. That's the publisher's table. Without them, this wouldn't be happening. And Mei Lin's English is much better than mine, and it's true. And she bashed a whole lot of reports into some understandable narrative, one would hope. Also, may I also thank IDE. This is the second time they have sponsored this event. They sponsored the last book launch at the Royal Selangor Club, and that support is very much appreciated, and you should support them as you should. I want to thank also Anwar's legal team. It was led by Gopal Siram, who's here today. Here he is. Right? A thankless task to stand before the Court of Appeal and the Federal Court knowing that no matter how eloquently you argue, and no matter how much evidence you present to the judiciary, they may nod when you're talking to them, but they're shaking their heads when they come to making their decision. And he fought valiantly with a great team of defence lawyers and is in the great tradition of the bar. And also Kapil Singh. Great. Kapil Singh was a great Malaysian patriot. It's so sad that he is not here today to see what has happened, to see what's happened in GE14. That man had an unflinching commitment to the law and to justice. He would see so many friends and comrades here, and he would be very proud. I was asked by someone who interviewed me, what lessons can lawyers in Malaysia learn? And I said, well, their model should be Kapil Singh. He never flinched. He never took a backward step. He wasn't scared of anyone, certainly not judges. And he told them so. I think Anwar was well served by having such a great man who refused. I can say Anwar, because it's in the book, that Anwar sent his brother along to pack Kapil, and Kapil told him to leave because he didn't want to be paid, because he was doing it because he wanted to do it and it was the right thing to do. That was the calibre of the man. So, I should say also, there were some prosecutors like Dato Yusuf. There were some prosecutors who were prepared to see me as someone other than the enemy, because I tried to be as impartial as I could, and if I agreed with something, I said so. If I didn't, I also said. But as I look out today, I really say this is your book, because this is your story. I am just hard to be independent knowing what's taken place, but I've tried to reduce the facts and of obviously my opinion so that all of your stories could be told, that you never forget what happened, and to ensure that it never happens again. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.